Hello and welcome to this session on AI in engineering. I have with me Ashish Khushu, the CTO of L&T Technology Services, and I am Karan, co-founder of Future Factor 360. So we are in for a very interesting discussion, but before we begin, let me request Ashish to introduce himself.
Thank you, Karan. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to speak to you as always. My name is Ashish Khushu, Chief Technology Officer in L&T Technology Services. And the primary charter of this office in the organization is to drive investments in technologies which we see coming up in the next 2 to 3 years.
Wonderful, Ashish. Thanks for that introduction. So let's begin our discussion. So when we talk about AI, so AI has assumed multiple flavors and it's being leveraged in very interesting ways. So can you help demystify the whole context of AI to us, and especially in the context of engineering, given the fact that L&T Technology Services has a very strong engineering heritage and AI is increasingly proliferating in this space. So if you could help demystify this for us.
We have been invested in AI for the last 7 years now. And the last 7 years have been very, very interesting because we learned a lot on our way. We've seen things evolve very differently. And we've also seen that there are certain profound changes in the way technologies have been adopted in the past that have been altered by the advent of the next gen of AI technologies. So it's been a very, very interesting journey from a learning, exploration, as well as its applicability in engineering. During this time, we have filed 55 unique patents in these areas. And that's sort of an endorsement of our discovery as well as the differentiation that we've been building in some of these platforms. We think that going forward, the applicability of a spectrum of AI technologies in engineering is going to have a huge impact. And I'll be happy to share with you the different layers of AI as we see coming into play when it comes to product engineering.
Wonderful. So while you talk about the different layers, there's an inherent complexity that's involved in the context of implementing AI. So if you could walk us through what those complexities are and where does this whole layers or the stack that comes in terms of addressing customer problems?
With this maturity, the way we look at AI and its applicability is as follows. First of all is the fundamental thing, which is that what is the use case that you're trying to solve? Now, the specifics of that particular use case come from domain experts in that particular industry, and it could vary from a customer to customer in terms of various elements. That ought to be the starting point. So I don't think we are in a situation where because AI is mature, you can force fit it to the customers and say, look, adopt it because we're mature. It won't work like that any longer. You ought to have a use case domain industry view in. That's one. The second thing is that when you take a use case and you break it down into multiple pieces, the more granular you get, the better it is. It's at that level you need to decide what element and technology of AI is applicable. It could be traditional AI. It could be RPA plus AI. It could be LLMs. It could be multiple LLMs. It could be Gen AI plus LLMs. It could be Gen AI plus the traditional AI. I mean, people will kill me if I say traditional AI, but I'm referring to ML, etc. And it could even be a combination of prompt engineering and Gen AI with LLMs. So there are various elements, but what determines its applicability is the tasks and the features which your use case has been defining where you need to apply. So I think that's the second most important thing in this whole thing. Another element that comes into this play is that you can't just look at AI and say, oh, because I've applied it, I will host it on cloud or I will host it on on-prem. The deployment strategy could be a combination of GPUs and CPUs and edge. Therefore, What would you do on the edge? What would you do on CPUs? What would you do in GPUs is another element that has to be factored in when you are trying to address a use case. Last but not the least is the costing. Sometimes you may end up taking decisions between CPUs and the edge, or CPUs and GPUs, or the choice of large language models, whether it will be open source or from a particular vendor, based on the costs, which can go to exorbitant levels. I think till you do not have a picture of all of these layers put together, you will not be able to successfully go ahead and implement AI for the effect that it can result in.
That's very interesting. So it brings me to my next question, which is, what's the typical kind of use cases where the different flavors of AI is being leveraged amongst your customers? Where do you see the maximum traction?
So over the last few years, we have ended up doing applicability of AI in almost all our verticals, whether it is medical, transportation, industrial products, or high tech. And couple of things emerge. One is that the literature part, as they say, applicability of AI to managing literature, which could be documentation, which could be engineering drawings, which could be catalogs, which could be engineering documents. That is one huge applicability of AI. And there, almost all elements of AI can fit in. There could be NLPs, there could be vision, there could be ML, there could be Gen AI, there could be prompt engineering, there could even be LLMs. The second place where we have seen a huge amount of impact happening is the whole process of test automation, right from requirement documentation to test execution. So far, automation has been around manual test cases or auto scripting, but LLMs can, and we see it with the type of work that we have done, impacting this whole chain, which is, and the results are dramatic there. The third place where we have also done projects is leveraging LLMs and Gen AI for software development. Now, there is software development as we understand, but there's also software development which comes from the industrial world, like applicability of some of these techniques to PLC programming, which for many people would seem very simple, or which would mean you're going back to assembly language. So these are areas where we have done various projects, and I think we are at a stage where a very large number of our customers are still experimenting with what are the type of use cases that they would like to productionize. So that not many of these use cases have gone to the production stage, because there are other issues regarding safety, security, trustability, etc., which are there. So this has been the spectrum, about 25 to 30 odd use cases that we have documented so far, where new age AI, which is LLMs, Gen AI, prompt engineering, can fit in. AI in product engineering is another interesting place. And when we take AI into product engineering and we look at AI in design, you really are then going back to applicability of ML or traditional, analytics capabilities being applied there. And it's a mixed bag. Not everything in product engineering requires LLMs and Gen AI, and you can make do with the normal AI. So that's really the spectrum of use cases that we've been managing so far.
That's very interesting. While we talk about AI, right, it's become a buzz amongst enterprises as well. And when they typically come to L&T Technology Services, or when you go to your customers, what's typically the problem statements that you see amongst your customers, and what is expected as a solution from L&T Technology Services?
Very interesting question, because because of whatever we have done so far, we have a point of view. And that point of view is now being substantiated with data, with results, with artifacts, which sort of highlight why we are taking a position of the nature that I talked so far. A very large number of our customers want us to be on the ideation table. And it is very difficult to be on an ideation table till you have not burnt your hands with experiments or with discovery, as well as doing some POCs and pilots, and then coming out and developing a point of view which you may or may not agree with the customer, but you ought to have a point of view based on data, based on artifacts. So the fact that we have filed 53 odd patents, and as I talk to you, we'll be filing perhaps 4 more this next week, and the fact that we have a basket of about 12 to 14 different type of solutions for various verticals where different type of AI technologies have been incorporated. Our conversations with the customer on the ideation table starts with what is the use case. We insist that we start with that discussion, and we try convincing our customers, and I must tell you that it does not require too much convincing, because customers do understand that that's the way it has to start. So our conversations with the customers generally start with a subject matter expert in that particular area, sitting with the AI team and having a conversation on the use case, breaking down the use case into workflow, breaking it down into tasks, and then coming back and saying, is AI applicable or not? And if yes, what is the type of AI that is applicable? After this is done, there is also another element of conversations that we have with customers, and which is we have to explore to learn its relevance and its importance to the customer. So I think we today are having conversations with customers where these two things determine what type of use cases we will work on, how we will work, because at the end of it, beyond a certain point, we do not have the data, the domain specific, use case specific, production specific data that our customers have. We have the experience and we have the subject matter experts. So we have to have a very strong relationship with the customer where he brings in his experts and production ready data for its applicability. So I think the contours of discussions are around these 3 points whenever we are having a conversation with the customers.
While we again talk about these use cases, the business case or the ROI also becomes important.
It does.
And how is LTTS able to drive those conversations around AI? There is the domain part of it, then you bring the technology part of it, but there's a business view in terms of the impact that it can generate.
So I think, again, a very interesting question, because a few years back, I mean, recently, I don't mean a decade back, just 2 or 3 years back, the answer would be, oh, AI, I want results tomorrow, and I want X amount of efficiency, Y amount of benefits, and so on and so forth. AI, this is the impact that I am expecting within so many weeks. Various levels of experimentations by customers and people like us have brought a certain level of awareness and maturity to this whole conversation, and which is applicability of AI to solutions is not going to solve a problem overnight. There is a certain amount of lead time that is required to mature your solutions based on data that is specific to you. Number one. Number two, only after you invest in X amount of time and resources and enable, AI could be or largely AI plays an assistive role. AI-led solution plays an assistive role in the way you're managing your stuff. And that means that there is a certain amount of investment and exploration that goes in. Now, when you factor these 3 things, the ROI conversations have become different. After you factor all of these things into the equation, then the customers, then the conversation we have with the customers is that a approach like this, a use case like this, and you factor in these things, we believe that the efficiency cost or the accuracy cost could be X. Sometimes you could have high accuracies and the impact would be less. Sometimes you could have more automation with lesser accuracy which could have a higher impact. So there are these variations which come in. So it's not a straitjacket answer that if I implement AI in 2 months in a particular solution or a workflow, I will give you 30%. I don't think that's the case. So you really do start with a slightly broader framework, and then you, as discussions go in, you sort of then narrow down to the benefits. And the benefits come in terms of automation, in terms of savings, in terms of even cost of deployment, and even in terms of what type of infrastructure you are using to run your, your solution. So these are the layers that have started coming into the picture when we talk ROI.
That's interesting. While we speak about these use cases, right, there is also that whole inherent complexity of data quality, reliability, security, privacy, etc. So, how are your customers overcoming this challenge, and how is LTTS helping customers overcome some of these inherent challenges that act as an impediment to really the proliferation of AI within their organization?
Different customers are at different stages of maturity. Many customers right now are still looking at exploring the efficacy and the benefits, and then some of them are in advanced stages, some of them are starting the journey, etc., etc. But whereas we are concerned, securing AI is a very important strategy that we have, and securing AI is an inherent part of our conversations with the customers. Now, on the face of it, securing AI looks like securing your email, but it's not that simple at all. Securing AI here is again evolving. There are guidelines published by UK government, European government, US government, then even IEEE has some guidelines. Now they say, look, your AI implementations have to be secure and have to adhere to certain standards. The question is, how will you ensure adherence? What tools, what approach, and then how are you going to validate it, and then who will certify it? So now that part of securing AI, which is extremely critical, is also in the process of evolving and becoming a mature area. It's not that you have solutions to all of these. This is our belief that you cannot have an AI strategy of deployment without inherent security assurance built in. Because here the security is not only about somebody penetrating your system, it's also about the data that you use, it's also about the efficacy and efficiency of your models, what type of VAPTs are you doing on even the model levels, your transformer networks, etc., etc. So it's a very deep subject.
While we talk about the different flavors of AI and then more specifically Gen AI, which has been the buzz in the recent times, I believe we are probably scratching the surface in terms of the potential that it has. At what point in time do you believe that it's going to become mainstream, and what does it really take for it to become mainstream?
I think another 18 to 24 months we'll see a much higher uptake of AI adoption. Number of pilots, POCs being done with the objective of deploying it in a part of a production program or taking data from production programs is increasing by the day. I think as other issues start getting solved, what part would you do on the edge or CPU or GPU? How do you make your edge intelligent, data security, privacy standards, and on cloud, on-prem, etc., etc. All of these things get sorted out. I think between 18 to 24 months, you will definitely see a huge uptake given the type of interest that we are seeing.
As we talk about this 18 to 24 months timeline, you earlier spoke about some of the investments that LTTS has already made in this space. If you could highlight a little more about what those investments are, and how do you see these investments evolving over the next 18 to 24 months so that you're in line with the changes that's happening with your customers?
So we have the investments in AI has a very clear two-pronged strategy. One is the investment on the technology stack. You have to be very proficient in various layers, and you ought to also keep track of what are the new things that are happening, right? So that is a technology track when it comes to investment. The other investment is in the use cases for certain select verticals. So let me take the technology stack first. We have, for a very long period of time, been convinced that embedded AI will play a very, very important role as you look at making your edges intelligent, which means capability to optimize models or capability of implementing large language models on the edge device. And I think you will see in the recent months, there have been announcements by various people that they're building that infrastructure to make the edge intelligent. So embedded AI framework, embedded AI capabilities, that's been a very strong investment area for us for the last 3 to 4 years, and we'll continue to do that. There is a team that works on understanding different large language models. And how do you implement large language models? One is the very traditional way of, uh, training these and making the models better, and the other is the RAG system. So they are always working on the large language models, benchmarking different large language models on various parameters, etc., etc. Then there is another team that works on the associated technologies like Gen AI, prompt engineering, and so on and so forth. So there is this tech stack team which is continuously working on these areas, and of course with the same objective of applicability. So that will continue. That's very, very strong for us. So on the vertical side, we have looked at use cases that will make sense to software-defined vehicle. We are looking at use cases that would make sense to healthcare. We are looking at use cases for making edges intelligent, AI in manufacturing, and of course, AI in software, in SDLC. So, this is more focused on use cases, this is more focused on technology, and this will continue. This team is only growing by the day.
And when you talk about these business specific use cases, are you proactively building these use cases more as accelerators that customers could leverage, or is it dependent on the customer needs? So how are you really building these use cases?
So far, we built a large number of these assets proactively, given the intelligence that we had after after engaging with so many customers and seeing what directions we take. After we do that, we take these solutions to customers to get them validated. And many a times, and in actually more often than not, it's the customer who comes back and tells us, why don't you do X, Y, Z? And then we change the course. So far, almost all the use cases that we have developed were developed proactively, taken to the customer. Sometimes the customer has learned the applicability for the first time from us. And then that opens up conversation. And then that also opens up guidance and mentorship we need from the customers. That's been the trend so far. When I say proactively, there is a role customers have to play in that, and the role that customers play is indirectly, because that intelligence that comes to us is basis the conversations and discussions on different type of customer problems that they that we feel they are encountering. So that's how we've been approaching, and going forward, we are trying to align a lot of our investments in areas where the customers are wanting to invest.
So while we talk about LTTS and some of the proactive investments that you've made, what else makes LTTS differentiated from some of the other players out there in the market?
It's just one simple thing, and that is our deep domain experience. That's just coming to the fore right now. That's the fantastic competitive advantage that we get. That's the most important element in the way we look at applying. The second, equally important, is what we call cross-poly innovation. Because when you're looking at an applicability of AI, you have the domain, then you have probably high tech involved, there is embedded AI involved, there is embedded involved, there is SDLC involved. So there's hardly a use case of a particular vertical which does not have elements of other verticals coming in. So that cross-poly innovation experience is coming as a huge advantage when we are looking at a use case going through its life cycle of development, deployment, and productionizing. So I think these two clearly are clearly a competitive advantage for us.
Come to the close of this conversation, Ashish, why don't you share some final thoughts about this discussion?
The journey so far has been very good, but we believe that there's a lot more to be done, a lot more of humility in terms of learning and applicability to the customers. We have to show a lot more agility and speed in learning, unlearning, and being relevant in this area for our customers, and that's what's driving us. Great set of people in the AI area, great set of people in the vertical, have been lucky so far in the way customers are reacting to us. We just have to ensure we don't let people down or our customers down in their expectations from us.
It's been a wonderful time having this dialogue with you, Ashish. So thank you very much for your time
Thank you,
today.
Karan.